Welcome back to the channel. This is the action figure grader, and as you can tell by the stupid thumbnail, I did get back from Hake's some wins from the last Hake's auction. I think it was lot 240, and I spent a lot of money. I've got 3 vintage Star Wars items, 2 mint on cards, and 1 pre-production item. And I also did pick up 1 comic, so I thought I'd get that out of the way since most of you don't care about the comics, you came to see the toys. So I did add another book for my Neil Adams comic book run here for Batman, and they are some stunners that I've already got in my collection. I've got Batman 232 on the left, and on the right is Batman 251. This is kind of the first depiction of the Joker as a homicidal maniac. Just a pretty classic cover. Just an awesome classic cover with Batman and the Joker on there. So that's a Neil Adams cover, 251 in a 9.2. And then I've got Batman 232 in the 9.2, both of those with white pages. That is Ra's al Ghul's first appearance, one of the main villains from the Batman world. And I did already pick up another Neil Adams book. This is a 7.0 with white pages for Batman 227. And I thought it would be appropriate to kind of pull this one out because I hadn't shown it on the channel yet. And it's another pretty classic Neil Adams cover. This is actually an homage to Detective Comics number 31, which is extremely expensive. So, but this is kind of like Neil Adams 1970s style, a little bit of gothic kind of thing going on. You know, it's just a very cool kind of early 70s vibe to it. And this is from December of 1970. So classic cover. And this one is a 7.0 with white pages, as you can see there. I picked this one up on eBay in an auction, and I paid about fair market value for it, but I knew when I bought it, the only reason I was really buying it is because I just wanted to have one of these in my collection. And it was white pages, which is very tough to get. But I said mentally, if I ever get the chance to get another copy in higher grade and the stars align and I have the money to do so, then I'm going to get a higher grade. And lo and behold, on Hake's, a higher graded copy did come up, and it matches. Actually, I didn't buy this on purpose, you know, knowing the grade of the other two, but the other 2 key books, the other 2s are 9.2s, and this one is also a 9.2. So this one was on Hake's, and it's an off-white to white pages, 9.2, same exact book, but just in higher grade. And it's a stunner. It's a really, really nice copy of this book, really nicely centered with perfect colors, and it was also freshly graded, so I felt very comfortable with the grade on that one, and it just looks pretty awesome to have 3 of the biggest Neil Adams 1970s books, all of them in the same grade, which again was not intentional. It was just how it worked out with my budget. And you know, when you start getting into higher grades than a 9.2 for some of these books, it gets very expensive. Now, make no mistake, this book was very, very pricey. This is very tough to get in a high grade. In a 9.8, there's only a handful. I don't remember the exact number. I think there's less than 5 in a 9.8 grade, and they go, you know, there hasn't been one that's sold in a long time, but Go Collect's fair market value for a 9.8 is $50,000. So that's out. There's no way I'm going to get that. So 9.2 is about as high as I felt comfortable going, and luckily the bidding didn't go too crazy. I accidentally put in on Hake's a really high bid. I wasn't paying attention, and I was kind of sweating it there because I accidentally put in a bid that was like, you know, well above market value. I'll just say that. And so I was sweating it a little bit, but luckily it went for about the very upper end of fair market value. And this is one that just continues to go up in price. I'm sure it'll settle back down eventually, but I just wanted to have it. I'm sorry. I just had to, I had to have this book. And so this is actually, of all the items I'm going to show you in this video, this is actually the most expensive item. It's a big, big purchase for me. These 2 combined on the ends were not as expensive as what this center book was. This is probably in the top 5 in terms of most expensive comic books I've ever bought. But I figured if I'm gonna get it, and you know, the timing was just perfect. I had the money set aside for it, and it came up It was freshly graded, perfectly centered. I mean, everything about it was perfect, so I had to get it. So I think that's it for the comics, but I wanted to at least show you that because for me, anyway, of the items I'm showing you in today's unboxing from Hake's, this is easily the one I'm most excited about. It's just such an incredible book, and to get it in such a high grade, I'm very, very excited about it. But let me turn the lights back on, and I'll show you the pre-production figure next. And then I've got 2 other mint-on cards I picked up at Hake's. As you guys know, pre-production vintage Kenner Star Wars items are very pricey, so I don't have a lot of them. And I only had these 2 prior to this Hake's auction, and they're both for a character that nobody cares about except for me because I look like him. And the first one is a Lobot kind of pre-production head. So clear plastic first shot head pull for Lobot, graded qualified 85. The reason it's graded qualified 85 is because it's just the head that is pre-production. They just took a standard retail release body and put him on there. So put that head on there. But it's cool because it's, you know, a clear head, and it was my first pre-production item. And the same seller, I think it was Paul M, that sold me these. The same seller had this one. And this is a first shot torso pull. So this one is just the torso piece, which is non-sonically welded, is a first shot sample prototype type thing. So that, you know, it was just happenstance that this seller had both of these, a headshot and a torso pull, both of them graded qualified 85 and archival cases. So very, very cool. And I thought that would be the end of my pre-production because pre-production stuff is so expensive. But as more and more of the items that I wanted to bid on Hake's went out of reach for me, I noticed that this engineering pilot Snaggletooth was hanging pretty close to where I was willing to make a bid on it. And so I did bid on this one and surprisingly won it at what I consider to be a pretty awesome price. It was sub $900 for an engineering pilot red Snaggletooth. And this is my first red Snaggletooth, period. I didn't have anything. No loose graded, no mint on card, anything. So I thought it was kind of a cool pickup. And it's just the figure. There's no weapon because it is an engineering pilot. What is an engineering pilot versus a first shot? So first shot prototypes are early in the production process, which is what these 2 are. Obviously, the clear head is a good giveaway there. But you know, first shots in general, they're kind of much earlier in the production process as they're kind of finalizing and tweaking the figure mold to be what the final production version is going to be. An engineering pilot is like a later stage prototype. So this is kind of samples as they've already finalized everything, but they're just trying to make sure that it's working okay. And when someone says they have an EP, the first thing I always do is look for the feet, because what the engineers did was mark them off with 1 letter and 1 number on the bottoms of the feet in marker. And not all of them have that. I mean, I've got a double telescoping saber Luke in my collection that was found with some engineering pilots, but or first shots, prototypes of some sort, but it did not have the markings on the feet. But the person who found those was a Kenner employee, and they were with other engineering pilots. So the certificate, the CIB label, the Certificate of Authenticity from AFA, notes that on the double telescoping saber grading label, that, or on the actual COA, that it was found with other engineering pilots, but it was unmarked, so we can't label it as an engineering pilot, but it probably is. That's kind of how they worded it. Where this one is very clearly labeled as such, so it was able to be labeled as such on the label. So this is an archival case, engineering pilot, Snaggletooth, Hong Kong 80+ grade. But that's usually a pretty good tell. You know, if you've got some stuff that you're buying from a Kenner employee, look on the bottom of the feet because it's probably an engineering pilot. And this one was, it did include the kind of statement from CIB that it was sourced and originated from an ex-Kenner employee. So very cool to get to pick that up. And really, you know, given how tough it is to find these pre-production items, I was just shocked that it went so low. So glad to pick it up. My first ever red snags. I'm going to have to get a PBP, a Spanish PBP loose graded at some point to pair with this one, but very awesome item. And so now let me show you the last two that I picked up from Hake's, two mint on cards. Here is the first one. This is a 45 back Empire Strikes Back Star Wars Display Arena offer Greedo. And this was more of a secondary look. You know, I was only kind of looking at it just casually, but because a number of the other items I was really interested in went well above what my comfort level was, namely the 20 back R5D4. It went way higher than I was comfortable going. So I started looking at some alternatives. This was one that I had not planned on picking up or bidding on or anything like that, but it stayed so cheap that I just like, well, there's no harm in that. And it's a beautiful crystal clear blister Greedo with that 45 back Star Wars Display Arena, unpunched example. And I think all in after, you know, buyer's premium and all that good stuff, it was around $450, $460, somewhere in that ballpark. So it was a number I was willing to pay, and I just thought it was nice. So this one, again, is an 80 grade. 80, 80, 90 are the subscores on that one. But a beautiful, nice straight card, and no price sticker, unpunched. Pretty much as good as it gets. You know, that's about as good as I need it to be. And I don't have many 45 backs. I've got a 45 back for R5D4, obviously for the debut card for Luke Skywalker in his Hoth battle gear. I also had the debut card 45 back for the Cloud Car pilot. And Death Star droid is the last one. I think those are the only ones I have for the 45 backs. But that one turned out nice. This is the one I really wanted, though, and I was prepared to basically bid whatever I had to do to win it. And I think I probably paid a little too high. I was hoping to keep it under 900 for this 21 back transition card ESB Death Star droid. It's a punched example, so I was, hey, maybe it stays lower than I like, you know, or then maybe to stay lower than I feared it would go. But unfortunately, it did go fairly high, and I think all in on this one, I was around $980. But I just figured it was now or never to finally get this one. I've bid on probably 3 of them over the years on eBay, and one of them went for like $1,200. It was unpunched, and I think it was an 80 plus grade. This one's an 80 punched example, so I was like, okay, well, maybe this one will stay sub $900, but of course it did not after all the fees and everything, but it was just the perfect timing. And this is actually my 8th mint on card vintage Death Star droid. He's one of my favorite characters, one of my focus characters, along with Bosk and the Cloud Car pilot. But really nice clear blister example that is in beautiful condition. I always thought that this card image for the Death Star droid is pretty timeless. And here's the grade on that one, 21 back ESB, 80, 85, 85. So 285 subgrades on that one. And, you know, as we've talked about at length in various market updates, these are quote-unquote transition cards where Kenner was transitioning over from Star Wars packaging over to the Empire Strikes Back packaging. So only the first 21 figures appear on this card back. None of the ESB character debuts or characters that were released starting on 31 backs were on this card back. So it's very similar to the 48 back free 9-num offer Return of the Jedi card, where nothing but Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars characters are on that card. So it's a fairly low manufactured run versus, you know, obviously some of the other later 31s and 32s and things like that for the Empire Strikes Back line of packaging. So tough to find this one, and given that he is a focus character of mine, I just had to try and grab it. But really beautiful example. And here's the back of the card. Obviously, the secret Star Wars action figure offer is for the mail-away Bosk, which I still don't. I've got a mail-away baggy Bosk, but I don't have the entire mail-away set with the box and everything. It's just so expensive. So maybe one day. But very cool. A character from the next Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back, comes with laser pistol. Movable head and arms and legs. Not available in any store at this time. So there you go. That is the 21 back. So I think, you know, I spent a lot of money in this Hake's auction, but they were all items, with the exception maybe of the Greedo, they were all items that I was kind of keeping an eye on. I wasn't sure if I was going to bid on that engineering pilot red snags. I figured it would just go to the moon and be $1,500 plus, which is where they usually sell. But very surprised that it stayed where it did, and very happy to pick that up at the value it did. But the two items I had to get in this auction were this 21 back and then my Batman 227. Those two were kind of like, I'm going all in on those, pushing all the chips on the table. But the rest were all kind of, the other two were just kind of lucky based on how bidding went on some of the other items I was really looking at that went a little bit higher than I wanted to go. But leave a comment as you're leaving me a like as to what you picked up in the last Hake's auction. Hopefully you were able to pick up something good. Thanks again to Heather and to Alex over at Hake's for the helping me with some kind of special requests on a couple of things, and for the impeccable packing job as always. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.